beyond Bitcoin, decentralized finance, and the end of banks. And as you can imagine, there was a lot of discussion with the publisher about those last three words. There was a very famous book written, for those of you who are into political history or economics, written by Francis Fukuyama in the 90s. It was called The End of History and the Last Man. Fukuyama was not trying to say that history had literally ended, obviously. In the same way as we're not implying that banks will cease to be. What we are trying to say over here, and what we set out to prove in the book, is that banks as we know them will have to end. There will be those who accept this revolution, this decentralized finance revolution, and they will survive, and there will be those who push back, and we don't think they will survive. The financial institutions, meaning banks, insurance companies, derivatives exchanges, stock exchanges, etc., are slow-moving beasts, as we all know. We all deal with our banks and insurance companies, and they're difficult to deal with because they're large. They're legacy systems. And in actual fact, the core of those businesses can be done without humans at all.
It's not that trust isn't important, it's that it's not a necessity in the system. So the mantra in crypto is don't trust, verify. We're talking about open source technologies where there's full transparency. I can go and interrogate the Bitcoin ledger, and I can see every transaction back to the beginning of the chain when Satoshi Nakamoto famously sent the first Bitcoin to Hal Finney in 2009. So I've got the full ledger of transactions. But more than that, I have the source code of the network that I can go and interrogate myself. So it's not a question of trust. I don't need to trust. It's akin to saying, who do you trust that 2 + 2 = 4? You're like, I don't need to trust anybody. I think the other fundamental thing to understand as a banking customer is that banks are now optional, right? Again, not everybody has the time, telemetry, patience, etc., to learn how to do that themselves, but some of us have. And so I recently wanted to take out a loan against some of my crypto assets. I didn't need to speak to anybody to do that. I interfaced with a protocol. I used Aave, A-A-V-E. I won't talk you through how that was done. But I could do a loan. I could do a loan without a financial institution. You can get an insurance contract from Nexus Mutual on the blockchain by interfacing with a protocol, and you don't need to speak to anybody. In decentralized exchanges, you're enabling exchange without a central authority. And you've got liquidity pools that are being contributed to by anybody who wants to, at any fraction they want to, and being accessed by buyers and sellers. And you've got the introduction of what we call automatic market makers, AMMs, which are algorithms that are matching buyers, sellers, adjusting liquidity pools and pricing in real time. And I think that speaks to Stephen's point, because if we zoom out, what's happening here is what always happens with innovation. Intermediary processes are being removed and efficiency is being introduced, and it's a force multiplier. We're not talking about incremental improvements, we're talking about exponential improvement.
What is your view on how regulation can help or hinder the development of the DeFi movement?
The regulatory landscape in terms of government policy, legal oversight over cryptocurrencies is on a spectrum, which extends all the way from those countries which say if you ever mention the word cryptocurrency, we're going to put you in jail for life. China is on that side of the spectrum, amongst other countries, all the way to those countries who have seen this as an economic opportunity for the country. El Salvador is the most obvious one there, and there are new ones coming, by the way. Mexico's a big one, and Argentina is another one. And the regulation happens in two spheres, Morris. It happens, a nation state needs, amongst other things, two very important things to operate. It has to collect taxes efficiently, and cryptocurrency gives bad actors a little wormhole to crawl through if they wanted to escape taxes. By the way, the traditional world of fiat currency, there's plenty of wormholes that people crawl through,
Absolutely.
But there's specifically a wormhole, cryptocurrency, and so people will evade taxes. The point can be made, it was made articulately just recently, I think, by Simon, is that if a government provides efficient and pleasant services for the tax money, nobody steals. This happens in various countries, which we won't mention, in the world where the government does a fantastic job of social services and healthcare and insurance, all of that. People do not cheat on their taxes because they believe they are getting value for their money. So tax is the one area where regulation is happening. How do we tax this thing? And the key word there is thing. Is this a currency? Is this a property? Is this a piece of foreign exchange? Is this a security? There are about 6 or 7 things that cryptocurrency can be, and there's no common world global standard around this. The second area that countries need to operate is they need to see the flow of capital through the country, the flow of money through the country, in order to see what's happening with prices, which is directly aligned to inflation and employment. And central banks have 2 levers, and the one lever is interest rates up and down, the second lever is liquidity in and out, right? The governments want to have oversight of where this value is being spent and how much is there, and a lot of the regulation is around that. Now, the DeFi maximalists, the zealots, the crazy libertarians who have inhabited this space to a large extent at the beginning, less so now, they say, no government, we don't want any government oversight of this. This was the whole point. That is not workable. And so we are of the mind that regulation is necessary. Regulation will not only mature the industry, but it'll foster innovation. And of course, the problem, as Simon mentioned, is that the speed of regulation is not the speed of internet innovation, and therein lies the problem.